Good evening. We will call to order the meeting of the Edina Planning Commission for July 25th, 2012. Jackie, would you please call the roll?
Here.
Here. Here. Here. We have a quorum, and the meeting is properly constituted. The first item is approval of the meeting agenda. You have the agenda before you. The plan is that we will conduct the regular business as on the agenda, and then we will adjourn the meeting and take up the matter of the we'll have a work session. We'll probably retire to the other conference room and discuss some of those things. So that's the plan. Does anybody have any other corrections or additions or changes to suggest to the agenda? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. The agenda is approved. First item, then next item, approval of the consent agenda. You have the minutes of the regular meeting of July 11th. Are there any changes or suggestions for changes to the minutes of the July 11th meeting? Hearing no comments, may I have a motion to approve the agenda? Or, excuse me, to accept the minutes?
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor, say aye. Aye. The minutes of the meeting of July 11th are approved. Next item on the agenda is community comment. Here's an opportunity for people in the audience, people in attendance, members of the public, to share new issues or concerns that haven't been considered by the Commission in the last month or so, and which are not specifically scheduled for future consideration. Is there anyone who wishes to address the Commission on any topic of interest? Apparently not, so we will move into public hearings. And the first item for public hearings, the only item for public hearings, sign area variance for Edina Public Schools, 5701 Normandale Road, Edina, Minnesota. Carrie?
Thank you, Chair, members of the Commission. Our one item this evening is for a sign size variance at 5701 Normandale Road. Its request is made by the Edina Public Schools. I'm sure you're familiar with the property, located just east of Highway 100. The Southview Middle School, the Edina Community Center, and the football track, soccer stadium, Coleman Field, located right here. The school is requesting a 264 square foot wall size sign variance to allow the existing 288 square foot sign that's located at the back of the press box. And that is located right here. Here is a view of the existing sign. It's this one located right here. This picture was taken from the residential street, 59th Street. Basically, I was standing about right here, a little over 500 feet away. So that's a look at the sign that exists up there today. The previous sign that was located there, this is a look at it here on the left-hand side of the screen, was 90 square feet in size. There was no permit that was obtained for that sign, so it's considered an existing non-conforming sign. They could replace that 90 square foot sign, but rather than do that, they're requesting the variance for the larger sign. The code requirement is 24 square feet. That's for a building identification sign. Our sign ordinance doesn't address this specific kind of use, so it fits under that, the building identification or structure identification code requirement. The proposed sign, or the sign on the right here, is 8 by 36, and the previous sign was 3 by 30. So in going through the variance criteria, staff does not believe that the variance criteria is met. We don't see a practical difficulty here. The request is due simply for a desire for a larger sign. This sign wouldn't assist in any wayfinding. The stadium itself essentially guides people to the site. They could have a 90 square foot sign replacing that existing sign. That's 3 times more than what the code would allow, so staff believes that would be reasonable. We don't see a unique circumstance. There may be other fields in Edina that can be considered the home of the Hornets. So a distinction may not be made just specific for this site. Again, the adjacent homes located about a little over 500 feet away, this sign does face them. The general purpose and intent of a wall sign is to have a wall sign that's generally in proportion to that facade. The sign here takes up the entire back of the building. So with that, staff is suggesting denial of the variance, subject to the findings that I mentioned and that are outlined in the staff report. With that, I can stand for questions, and representatives of the school district are here to make a presentation as well.
Thank you. Are there questions of staff? Commissioner Scherer.
Carrie, because this is, as you say, is an unusual building to which to apply this standard, what are we measuring when we do this calculation? When we have a stadium, a small building, a press box, how are we actually doing the calculation?
It's basically drawing a square around the entire sign here.
Right, but what are we applying it to? When you're coming up with...
The 24
You're just measuring it against the absolute standard of no larger than X?
Yes.
Regardless of the size of the building?
Correct.
Regardless
of the size of the building, 24 square feet is the maximum.
Okay.
Commissioner Potts?
Carrie, you referred to it taking up the entire facade. So you're considering the press box independent of the stands themselves? We
are. Now, certainly a case could be made that the entire stadium could be considered the facade. So when considering the sign here against this entire mass, it may fit into the scale of that entire area.
And how new is this sign ordinance? You mentioned non-conforming signs. There must be others as well.
Oh, yeah, I'm certain there's quite a few out there. I don't know specifically.
And the current sign ordinance, when was that put in effect?
Well, I'm not sure. It hasn't been amended since I've been with the city, 6 years. But I'm not sure how old. I would guess that it's quite old.
Thank you.
When was the sign constructed?
Earlier this summer, I believe the applicant could give a more detailed response to that. But
Commissioner Forrest?
When I was out there, I didn't look specifically for this, but is there other signage like on the ground there that indicates where to go to find this stadium, where to enter to park or whatever?
yeah, not that I'm aware of, other than just the sign on the building
Okay.
directly below.
Other questions of staff? Thank you. Does the applicant wish to make a presentation?
Get the clicker to go back and forth.
Chairman and Planning Commission, thank you for taking this time to hear our plea for the signed ordinance. And we'll try to go as quickly as possible because I know we're the one act tonight. Why we're here is we're here to seek a signed ordinance the size for the stadium at Coleman Stadium. And like Carrie said, the issues to consider are the 4 listed there, practical difficulties, extraordinary circumstances of the property, be in harmony with the general purpose of the intent of the sign ordinance, and not to alter the essential character of the neighborhood. and hopefully we can, to your satisfaction, address those issues. The first one, before I get to the slides, are just to relieve practical difficulties that prevent with the structure. We, as someone pointed out, we do not have any like directional signs in the properties or off 100 or anything Benton Avenue that say Coleman Stadium this way. And for Edina residents, I think most people know where the stadium is. But from our school standpoint, oftentimes we get visiting schools come to the high school. Most high schools across part of the nation have their stadium next to the high school. Edina is obviously unique, and so quite oftentimes where my office is, I'm sorry, my name's John Sohm. I'm the athletic director at the high school as well. We have people come to our office and ask, oh, I thought the soccer game was here, or where is the basketball court? And where 90% of our athletic venues compete at is Coleman, Edina Community Center. And so we give directions, okay, go right, Benton, and we sometimes still get a call from a bus driver. If it's a bus driver, give them our cell phones and say, call us back. And then I say, is that this the stadium? Like, yes, that's Coleman Stadium. If you see a water tower, that's kind of where you're at. And that's kind of where we use as our signage is the water tower, because that's a nice prominent feature. And so for us, it would be nice to have a more noticeable sign as you're coming up a front road or from 100 to be able to hopefully see the stadium and a green thing that says Coleman Stadium or Edina or Big Hornet or something like that. So to help our visiting schools, that would help us in our practicality. And then just a quick history, as you can see from the picture that was shown earlier. The old sign is a nice sign. It was out of compliance, and so we went through this process. It was considered a non-conforming sign, and if we were going to do it, we wanted to make sure we were in compliance with city ordinances, or at least go down the path if there was a variance or not, and make sure we are in compliance with current city practices. Our intent is not to do things not in line with other buildings in the city of Edina. And our goal for kind of sprucing up the press box in the stadium is Edina has a great reputation in being excellent in athletics and academics, obviously, and our facilities don't always match that in terms of being the newest and things, because with that history comes older buildings. And so this was an attempt to spruce up what we can without, all of a sudden building a new stadium or a new track, new turf, all that kind of stuff. And so the intent was to kind of give a little life, a little pride to the current facility, and that is kind of another justification why we're looking to do. And you look at comparable schools. This is just one example. This is Wayzata High School, and which bleachers are enclosed, and so when we consider the stadium, we do look at the entire bleacher structure for the size of the facility. But you can see on that, their back of their bleachers that they have a huge logo that's with the Wayzata Trojan, home of the Wayzata Trojans, and their press box. There's a huge sign behind that lists all the state championships they have in football and soccer, which that alone is bigger than the sign we're asking to do. So what we're asking is not out of the ordinary for any high school. Actually, it's probably more in par with neighboring schools and just high schools of our size, is to have some more things that instill a sense of pride in the people that come to the games and identify your school and all the great things that schools bring to a community. And for the product itself, there was some question what kind of product it is. I'm going to turn over to Paige Rickard here, who is a community member and also very involved in our Football Association Booster Club. And it's a unique product. It's not a normal sign. So I'm going to turn over to Paige to kind of explain what it is.
My name is Paige Rickert. As John mentioned, I've been real active through my kids with the school, and I'm also involved on the Downtown Minneapolis 2025 committee. And over the last 2 years, we were looking at creative ways of sprucing up, as John put it, some areas that were dilapidated in downtown Minneapolis. And these boxes are electrical boxes that we wrapped with this vinyl material, and you can see it's a rushing stream on the right and a sunset on the left. You can take these old dingy boxes and create an art piece. And the city of Minneapolis put 28 of these in. I think they'll expand this over the years. And so once I found this product, I got together with John and I said, I think we can do something great with this 3M vinyl. I've got a sample if anybody cares to feel it.
Thank you, Paige. And so, kind of address some of the other issues that the ordinance has is, obviously I'll acknowledge my bias, but I do think a school property is an extraordinary area. A high school stadium isn't like a business. It isn't about, there's nothing really you can compare it to besides another stadium. And if you look at Target Field or something like that, you'll see a lot more signage on those structures, obviously. But this would provide for us a sense of direction, identification for the stadium, which is kind of hard to see unless you're right in front of the ticket booth. It does promote school spirit and sportsmanship, and it helps instill that sense of pride in what is kind of an aging facility, but still, when a student or a community member comes to a game or an event, or a coach is coming, they feel that kind of sense of pride to the facility they're playing in, which we're trying to achieve with this as well. I went to intersections to take photos. So this is across 100, some of the neighbors off of High 100 and Benton Avenue. As you can see from across the highway, there's a tree line there. So in terms of not really affecting the neighborhoods, you can't see it too well. This is the other corner, still behind trees, where the intersection of Benton and that High 100 ramp is. And then also that 60th and School Road picture that Carrie was at. This is on the corner, but you can see it from those homes. But it is, relative to the stadium, it's not that, in my opinion, not as noticeable as that green barn that's there or the stadium itself. And so, in terms of affecting the essential character of the neighborhood, I would think it would not, in my opinion. So, once again, I want to thank you for taking the time to look at this variance for the school district, and I want to thank you on behalf of the athletic community and the students at the high school. And if there's any questions, I'm more happy to answer them.
I have a couple questions. When did you start thinking about putting this sign?
Well, I think, Paige, you probably came with spring, is when it was approached and asked about it, when Paige brought this product to us and said we could do some things in the locker rooms and maybe even some signs of the stadium.
You said that your intent was that you wanted to comply with the city ordinances, yet you went ahead and put this sign up in absolute disregard of the city ordinances. It seems to me you don't have a practical difficulty because you've created the problem by putting the sign up before you even applied for a variance. I have a problem with seeing how you justify a variance under practical difficulties when you created the problem by putting the sign up.
And we are, if the committee said no, we'd take the sign down without any hesitation. No one complained to the school that it was out of ordinance or something like that. It was so.
It's the school district's supposed to follow the ordinance. They're not supposed to wait until people complain about the ordinance.
And the process was a member who was on vacation brought to our attention, and wasn't even, honestly, I was not even aware of the ordinance myself, and said, no, we don't want to leave it up there and wait to complain. We contacted Carrie to make sure what's the process to seek this out, and
Okay.
Our intent was not to ignore and wait. It was like we got to be proactive with this and not wait for a complaint. But I understand what you're saying, obviously.
But you did totally ignore the ordinance.
I was not aware of the ordinance, but yes,
Okay.
it was not.
Are there other questions of the applicant? Commissioner Forrest.
Is there any lighting on or from within the sign, and does it have any reflective properties?
No.
Okay.
Commissioner Potts.
I remember when I first pulled off Highway 100 and saw that sign, it caught my eye, and I thought, oh, that's kind of nice. I think it's tastefully done. I think the process by which you've gotten there is unfortunate, not having known the ordinance. Could a couple of questions then? Could you back up 2 slides on your show? And Carrie, how do we characterize the water tower signage? And do you know the square footage of that? As far as building identification or?
Yeah, I don't. I don't know the size of that or the history of painting on the logo or just Edina.
So I think in terms of a civic pride or identification, that makes sense. as it's been there. How the two correlate, I'm not sure exactly. I guess I would, then in terms of other reasons for seeking a variance in support of something in this particular location, I would make the case that that it is in proportion with the facade, if you consider the facade to be the entire stands and the press box, which is how I view it from an automobile. It doesn't seem to alter the essential character of the neighborhood. However, staff also raised a good point about other venues seeking a similar thing. I'm not sure how to deal with that. We've got a lot of venues, and we wouldn't want to have, I don't think, a lot of very large signs there. So I guess I just offer those thoughts up.
Other questions of the applicant? Commissioner Carpenter.
Approximately how much did the sign cost? This is a vinyl application?
Yeah, I'll turn over to Paige from that exact.
It was a donation from a private citizen.
You know what the relative value of it was then, in terms of what it cost the donor?
$6,000.
Okay, so it's not inconsequential.
Other questions of the applicant?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anyone else wish to speak to this issue? No one else coming forward, so I'll take a motion to close the public hearing and move the discussion here to the commission.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the commission's here. Comments from the commission? Commissioner Scherer.
I'm going to do sort of a free float here of my thought process, so bear with me. I think that, and I believe Planner Teague mentioned this in his presentation, this is one of those sort of unusual, unique situations. It's difficult, I think, to apply the idea of practical difficulty when we don't really have a code addressing this kind of a situation, this kind of a building. It's pretty unique. It's not the same as a commercial enterprise. It's not located in the same location. I agree with Commissioner Potts that I do think that this, if you look at the larger building face that it's on, I don't have an issue with the scale of the sign at all. And I concur with the practicality question of finding directions to the location. There's nothing else that directs you there in any other way. And I am encouraged by the fact that we have the good fortune that the sign will face a field, a freeway, other Edina public school buildings, and is a considerable distance from any R1 zoning that is adjacent to it that actually has housing sitting on it. So I am, quite frankly, persuaded that I think the sign should be allowed to stay.
Other comments from the commission? I have a comment. The ordinance doesn't talk about nice. The ordinance doesn't talk about it's a nice thing to have. The ordinance talks about practical difficulties. There is no practical difficulty here. The city of Edina, the school board has in the past, I think at least twice since I've been on the commission, come before the commission seeking variances for signs. Those variances have been granted, but they came before they built the sign. So I'm not persuaded that they should somehow be excused for ignoring the ordinance or not understanding the ordinance. Had the school board come to the commission before putting up the sign with a picture of the sign, I could be persuaded that this is a nice-looking sign and maybe we ought to give a break. But judging from the comments that we've had on this commission before, raising the issue of practical difficulty in denying variances, I don't see how this one passes muster. Commissioner Forrest.
I'm also not put off by the appearance of the sign, and I do think it's in scale. I have some of the same concerns as our chair. The practical difficulties have to prevent a reasonable use. The use won't be changing. It's not impinging, I don't think, on the use, except perhaps to say direction finding. I don't think it quite rises to that level. Yeah, it's a tough one. And also, the ordinance specifically says we aren't to take into account the economic factors associated with a variance, so.
Commissioner Carpenter?
A question for staff, if I could. Carrie, just to clarify, if we consider the entire backdrop to the stadium there as the square footage of that for purposes of making a determination that that it would be a permitted use or a variance ought to be granted, would we be within the scale then? I can't remember what you said before.
Yeah, I think certainly you could make a finding that it meets the intent of the ordinance in terms of size and scale of the facade when taking in the whole of that area, including the stands.
Okay. With that in mind, I'm sympathetic to the concerns that this happened the way it did, but I also understand that people aren't always as aware of the ordinances as we are. And I'd like to be a little bit creative here to see if there's a way we can accommodate in this particular situation. I'm not looking for trying to, drive a truck through a small hole, but we have a large backdrop facade there, and I'm inclined to look at that somewhat favorably for purposes of reaching the conclusion that a variance could be granted.
The school board is not unaware of the ordinances. They've been here at least twice in my memory seeking sign variances. And they didn't do that here. They went ahead, the athletic complex, the athletics rule, and they came and did their thing. And now they've come hat in hand seeking a variance. If they take the sign down and make another application for a variance, yeah, maybe we consider it at that point, and maybe we look at the whole size of the stadium and do that. But
no, I agree with your comments. I mean, but I'm a little reticent to I don't know, punish one or two individuals who may have made an incorrect decision when the school district is a large body, multi-headed body, and as a result of that, mistakes are made sometimes. I don't think it was intentional, but it was clearly ignorant of the ordinance. But it wouldn't be the first time we've had that.
in terms of moving forward, how do we square someone coming to this board seeking a variance where they cannot show practical difficulties, and we don't grant a variance when they've stepped through all the done everything right, followed the procedure, and they come here and we deny a variance on the basis of practical difficulties, which are potentially self-created, and yet we grant this variance. How do you square that?
Could I ask a question? Maybe this was talked about earlier, but does anyone know if the bleachers support the top box, or is it an independent structure, and how would that be permitted as a building? Is it one building, or would you permit this in two different or whatever different pieces?
The structure, the press box is on top as a part of the bleacher structure. It's not a freestanding building. So if the bleachers would go, the press box would go too.
So by that rationale, wouldn't it be one building? Maybe I'm missing something was said before, but if it was structurally together, I'm assuming it was permitted together, or at least permitted from the standpoint of it's a piece of it or an attachment to it, wouldn't that also mean it's one even though it's not technically a wall there, I guess you could consider the underside of the bleachers walls if you really got into it. Wouldn't that, because of that, isn't it one structure? I'm just trying to think of a way around this. If it's considered that for that purposes, why would it be different for a sign ordinance? And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying what they did was correct by any means, but it's a school, so.
Yeah, it certainly is one structure. I guess not that this is a real good analogy, but if you look at a strip mall, we don't take the entire wall, we just take the front facade in front of it when considering the 15% that's allowed for signage in front of just that facade. So we kind of took that for just the press box in this case. But you certainly could make the case that this is one structure and you could consider the entire bleachers and the press box as one structure in this case.
Yeah, I mean, it's structurally dependent on each other, so it's not two buildings. So I don't know how you could divest at that point. I mean, you're kind of splitting hairs here, but it is one structure. And you wouldn't be taking the other sides or the front of it or anything. It'd just be the back side.
I would agree, yeah.
Like
On that point, just so I understand, if you take a look at the building, the medical building across France from Point of France, there are several storefronts there. You would not take the whole size of that building to determine the size of a sign for any one of those stores. Is that correct?
That's correct, just the storefront.
But you would to put lettering on the entire building, though, right? I mean, you're looking at different businesses there, so I realize, or I mean, the different business they would have their little piece of the storefront. But if you're looking at say the hospital, for example, they are one business, so they have a sign up top that that you took into account that whole side of the building when that one came through.
That's correct, yeah. By code, they're allowed one sign on that building. Now, they have received variances for to put additional signs on, but the code would allow just one sign.
But in an office building, and you naming an office building with the letters,
Right.
that's the size of that facade is considered for that building name, correct?
That's correct.
Notwithstanding all the other small retails in there.
That's right.
I'll give you that argument, but you can also not deny the argument on the other side, that you can interpret this building either way. But the point is, the practical difficulty here is self-imposed. They built a sign without seeking the variance first. Commissioner Forrest?
I don't see that as a practical difficulty. I think it was the wrong thing to do. So here's a very polite but figurative smackdown for that. But I guess the practical difficulty that I can find in this is that there is the unique need for identification of the field and for people from outside of the community to be able to locate it. And to me, that does seem to be a practical difficulty that the sign would be addressing. And the circumstances extraordinary to the property, again, it is the uniqueness of the property and the use. This is in an R1 neighborhood, but it probably couldn't be cited more appropriately, directionally, regarding the other neighbors. The tree line, I'm not, maybe 7 months out of the year, so that doesn't sell me a lot as far as the visibility. And I don't think it really alters the essential character of the neighborhood because I think the use is the primary impact. I do like the fact that it's not lit, especially internally. And I guess I would try to maintain that, or at least have some type of lighting that would just illuminate the sign and only during the time of athletic events.
Commissioner Potts?
Well, I think I was pretty clear in this setting with this building size. I find this sign attractive and appropriate. However, appreciating the downside of the precedent we might set. If we grant this variance, I think it would be interesting to have the school district come back with a comprehensive look at all the athletic facilities and the potential sign requests that might come up with other ones. If we grant this, what comes up at Braemar or other places?
Each variance requirement has to be taken de novo. We have to look at each one fresh. We cannot, we're not supposed to consider precedent in our decisions about whether or not a variance is granted.
If I can ask another question, Carrie. Carrie, back to the issue of the backdrop and whether you consider or don't consider that for purposes of the variance. If it was considered as part of the overall wall area, would it comply without getting a variance?
It would not. The maximum is 24 square feet here. So whether we consider it or not, it's more just the purpose and intent of that wall sign.
Okay.
I think what I'm hearing from the commission and the practical difficulty here might be the fact that you've got a varsity high school venue that's not located on the campus as the high school. So that could be the practical difficulty that sets this apart from most schools or other venues within town.
Other discussion? What's your pleasure? Commissioner Forrest?
I guess I would like to also emphasize that we don't, just because smaller signs aren't going to crop up along the same, in the same area as well, that we aren't getting more and more small signs added to it for the tickets or come here for refreshments or whatever, so.
I'm open to whatever you want to do with this. Mr. Forrest?
I move we grant the variance based on the findings that the practical difficulties include the location of the field away from the high school and the need for out-of-town visitors to find it, that the type of structure it is what makes it unique and extraordinary to the property, and that no further signage is added beyond what's there at this time.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
Just to clarify, is the intent about not having further signage, is that intended as a condition to the variance, or?
I would, yes, I'll say that, because there are so many associated buildings over there. It's easy to say, well, this is a sign on this structure. We're going to, I'd say keep it minimal and keep it clean if you're going to have the size of sign.
If they ignore the ordinance, why would they ignore a condition? They knew what the ordinance was in the past. I will not accept that argument that the school board knew or didn't know what the ordinance was. Okay, motion's been made. Is there any further discussion? Motion's been made and seconded to approve the variance subject to the condition that no further signs be placed on that location. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? No. The motion carries. there's a, well, there's a 2-week appeal time, so somebody can appeal to the city council if they wish. I don't know. The next item, correspondence and petitions. We received the council connection. You've received your attendance report, and Jackie and Carrie, as I'm looking at that attendance report, it doesn't seem to be right. This seems to me to be the 14th meeting.
Yeah, it's not. It looked like the one was not included up on the top line, and so that throws the percentages off.
Okay. So this report would have been through 13 meetings.
Correct.
Right, okay. We also received the city council meeting minutes. I note that they did not approve the building at 65th and France, so we'll see what happens with that project.
My understanding is that their discussion centered largely around the 4th and the 6th floor question.
Right. Chair and commission member comments. I don't have any further comments. Does anyone else on the commission have any comments or anything to add? Okay. Staff comments.
Just a quick reminder that we will not be having a regular meeting of the Planning Commission on August 8th. And also that we have shifted the September 26th meeting to September 27th. So just 2 reminders of those 2 upcoming meetings. So your next meeting will be August 22nd. And that's all I have.
You said the September meeting from the 26th to the 27th.
Correct.
Any further official business to come before the commission? We will adjourn to the mayor's conference room to discuss the ordinances. Kevin Staunton did submit a few comments for that, and I think everybody's gotten copies of that. So if there's no further business to come before the commission officially, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor say aye. Aye. We are adjourned.